Welcome back. It's the start of the second day. And we are playing as Grace, as I already said we would. Well, I didn't say we were going to do it now, but I did say we were going to do it in this game. And it seems that Gabriel has been relegated to the couch. Kind of a unique situation, because before we never played as Grace with Gabriel and Grace in the same place. Well, unless you count the end of Gabriel Night 2, I suppose. When Gabriel was locked in the dungeon, and later when they were both at the Opera House. But most of the game they spent separated, with Gabriel in Munich and Grace in Rittersberg. And now they are both here in Rennes-le-Château.
He looks so harmless when he's asleep, doesn't he?
Sure.
Don't get me started.
Oh.
Don't get me started. Oh, I think I'll let him sleep. He's not going on the tour this morning anyway. Besides, he and Mosley had a few last night.
Yeah, I'm sure that's smart in the middle of a case. Speaking of Mosley, I still get the feeling he knows more about what's going on here than he's letting on based on some of the stuff he said. He didn't seem surprised about the involvement of the Freemasons in any case. There are some weird issues with the connections between various geometry elements of the background here. And it seems like Grace brought luggage, unlike Gabriel, who came here in rather a hurry.
Our stuff. I brought it down from Prince James's house.
Well, we can't open it or look in it, so whatever.
Oh, the bed's pretty comfortable.
And I'm betting you are glad you are not sharing it with Gabriel.
Those are great for reading in bed.
And Grace also brought some other things put on the desk here, which I guess is the reason this is the only room without stationery, because this was going to get on the desk. This is a laptop, state of the art, for 1999. Okay. Looks kind of bulky, even for back then.
I'm sure glad I got that laptop.
But it is, other than that, a very sophisticated laptop in that it can run indefinitely despite not apparently having a power cord, has a connection to the internet somehow, and a database that rivals Wikipedia. And a printer and scanner built in, somehow. So, that's actually quite advanced. There's also some other stuff lying here.
I got 2 fingerprint kits. Gabriel's not going to have all the fun on this case.
We will be expected to deal with some prints at some point. We have to dust for prints. Well, let's check what Grace has in her inventory anyway. Just picked up the fingerprint kit.
I got us both a fingerprint kit, so we can both work on the case.
Yeah, I'm glad that Gabriel isn't trying to exclude Grace this time. I don't think she would let him in any case. What's this?
I got some Deutschmarks converted to francs at the airport. Not much to spend it on around here, though.
Her wallet, it appears. We get an icon with Grace, which is scanned into SIDNEY, but despite the fact that that icon appears on everything in the inventory, it really only works when you're using the laptop, which is what SIDNEY is. It's been mentioned several times already.
I can't scan that into SIDNEY.
Also because we're not using SIDNEY. Even with things that you can scan into SIDNEY, you have to do it from the laptop. So why that icon shows up in the inventory always, I don't know. Her passport?
Yep, that's me, all right. Nothing like Kinko's to do a girl justice.
place of birth or is listed as New York. I don't remember if she was supposed to be born in Japan. I guess she was born in the States then. Oh well. And it does actually say Nakimura. So I guess that settles that. Despite the fact that it is still not a real Japanese last name. And Nakamura is. And there's still people who call her Nakamura even in this game. Oh well, I've been over that before. And a room key.
Key to the commune.
I guess she got a spare key from the reception. Or if they're sharing one key between them, that would be very inconvenient. I've had to do that once, so... on a conference with other people from my workplace, where we shared one room with 4 people and had one key. A lot of coordination was required to make sure everybody could get into the room when they wanted.
I always carry my sketch pad. Well, you never know when you'll get an urge to do a Gabe as chimp doodle.
You never know. And she was a painter, or at least she had painting stuff in the first game, so I guess she could. Okay, let's take a look at this laptop. There's actually also a photograph on the laptop.
Shadrel Gyatso runs a monastery for training Schottenjäger monks. His mind is amazing. Oh, I would love to go spend a few months there.
That's the place that Gabriel discussed with Mosley before, where he said Grace wanted to go, but he didn't. It seems Grace is unwilling to let that go. Let's use this laptop. See what it's about.
New email.
And this is SIDNEY, the Schottenjäger Informational Database. NI. Okay. It has been mentioned several times, was even mentioned in the graphic novel, and is this kind of database thing that Grace set up, which I guess is more convenient than lugging around the entire Schottenjäger library, which we do not have at our command here. I suppose it was either this or constant correspondence with Gerda to get information from there. Kind of reminds me of Police Quest 3 and the stuff you could do with a computer there, especially later on with some of the analyzed stuff we'll be doing up here. And apparently we get email on this thing. Like I said, it has an internet connection somehow. So let's see what that is. This is, by the way, one thing that completely and utterly breaks when you try to run this game in a non-standard resolution. The game was supposed to support 640 by 480, 800 by 600, and 1024 by 768. And while it is very easy to force it into a different resolution, and almost everything works, this does not. It doesn't just display wrong, it becomes completely unusable. That is the main reason why I could not do this Let's Play in widescreen. I contemplated doing most of the Let's Play in widescreen and then switching resolutions whenever using the laptop, but you're doing it, you just have to do that too often. It would become a major hassle. Besides which, the game has the nasty habit that if you've been playing in a wrong resolution and then switch to use the laptop, it still doesn't display right. You would have to save, exit the game, and then reload to get it, so it would be way too much of a hassle to do. So that's why this Let's Play is not in widescreen, because this does not work, and it is rather important. One of the things that can happen, for example, is that the emails window is off screen, so you can't actually look at the emails, and you can't drag anything here, so that doesn't work while you have a scroll bar. Let's see what these emails are. Hello from rt_nakimura@aol.com. I mean, these are valid email addresses. I don't know if they exist. Grace.nakimura@euroserve.com. July 1st, 1998, 7:25 a.m. Well, based on the check-in logbook, today is July 9th. Because Gabriel checked in on the 7th, which makes yesterday the 8th, today would be the 9th. And they did not list what day of the week it is, so unlike in previous games, I cannot check if they got that right. At least with Grace in the same place, we won't have time-traveling mail to contend with. Let's see what they're writing. It seems to be Grace's parents. Subject, hello. Grace, your father had a wonderful idea. We're going to send you an early birthday present. Tickets to fly home. How does next month sound? I met the nicest boy at the Japanese Cultural Center. His name is Ryan Mikoshi. I gave him your email. I hope you don't mind. Before you start, he's very nice looking, and he's an electrical engineer. He works for IBM in Manhattan. I'm telling you, the girls at the center are quite interested, but I showed him your picture and told him all about you. You know I can make you sound good. Mrs. Willis's daughter is traveling in Europe for a year too. She's pretty but spoiled. Her parents are paying for this trip because she got accepted at Harvard Law School. But at least she's a good daughter. So now that we pay for this new email account every month, you can't write to your mother? Let me know right away about the trip. The second week of July works best because we have theater tickets before and after. We can drive over to Yale and look up some of your school friends. Maybe talk to that nice Professor Barkley. Love, Mum. Okay, well, second week of July would be now, so I think we're not going. Talk about overbearing parents, but we already kind of knew that from the previous games. Can we reply to that?
No, thank you.
I'm not surprised.
Nah, I don't want to write anybody right now.
Or at any point in the game. These 3 buttons are completely useless. I guess they're just there for realism's sake.
I don't need to print it.
The next email is from R. Mikoshi, oh, that's the guy, at hotmail.com. We're 13 years beyond this game, and Hotmail is still around. Some things just never change, although back then it was not yet owned by Microsoft, I think. Grace, it is addressed to Grace, of course, July 3rd. Greetings. Hi Grace, my name's Ryan Mikoshi. Your mother gave me your email address. She says you're taking a European sabbatical? Sounds great, I wish I could get away. I graduated with my MSEE 2 years ago and went to work for IBM 2 weeks later. You know how school loans can be. Anyway, your mother says that you're coming home in a few weeks, so maybe we can get together. She made you sound pretty interesting. People think I'm interesting too. Yeah, I'm sure.
I really don't want to get the guy's hopes up. Nah, I don't want to write anybody right now.
Yeah, that's not related to the email, so there's no special message for that. And the final email is from C_llama at ohm.com. Not sure if that's real, or ohm.com, I don't know. This was July 7th. The day before yesterday then, if I'm right. Subject, Destiny. Dear Grace, of course you are welcome to join us any time, even if your partner does not choose to do so. But I sense that you feel tied to your current situation, perhaps without a clear understanding why. Love and loyalty are precious gifts, but they must be free and open, not sources of resentment or restraint. Destiny can also be a heavy weight, and I sense your destiny is a deep one. Sometimes we must wait for the event in which we are to participate before we can move on. Let this thought give you patience. If you feel the path blocked beyond your ability to influence, you may need for fate to find a detour. Remember, we cannot control others. Our choices belong to each of us alone. I can feel you clearly and sweetly across the long miles. I know you will find your way. I only hope that our paths cross before we are both too old and wise to learn from each other. Your friend, Shadrell. I think that's from the monks, I suppose, from the picture. I realize that most of this text is going to be way too small in the video. I already noticed the problem with the subtitles, which are barely readable if you watch the 720p version at full size. There's nothing I can do about that, but fortunately for you, I guess, then, is that I read everything, so you know what it says anyway. And that is the last of the emails. Let's see what else we can do with this computer. We can search. This is basically like a database. There is a lot of stuff in there. There's unfortunately not really any index. And I could spend several videos or several hours probably reading everything, but I'm not going to do that. I will limit myself to things that are actually related to what we need to know. Because there's a lot of stuff in here, just general background information on various occult things, stuff to do with the previous 2 games, so it's way too much. It's also kind of confusing if you just start searching for things at random and follow links and stuff, and then you come across things, and sometimes you will get points for articles and you have no idea why. That means they will become relevant at some point later in the game, and you would have gotten points for them then, if you search for them when they are relevant. But at this point, not so much. So that's also one of the reasons why I will not be deviating too much from things that I'm actually interested in. But let's do a little bit of background stuff. Let's check Schattenjäger. Schattenjäger is a German word that translates literally as shadow hunter. It is the title used by a German family of supernatural investigators. The Ritter family of Bavaria is descended from inquisitors, Jesuits, and witch hunters, and claims that some ancient charge to serve the light has shaped its destiny. Although it has broadened its outlook over the centuries, it still strives to achieve its mission of hunting down and destroying supernatural evil. The family's patron saint is Saint George, and it is in possession of a talisman of ancient design, which is alleged to have protective powers. In 1993, the last German member of the family, Wolfgang Ritter, died. He passed along the family castle and title to his nephew, Gabriel Knight, an American. It's interesting, Gabriel also talked about that with Mosley, that they don't really know how their family started out with the Schattenjäger business. The journals don't go back far enough to find that out, so I wonder if we'll ever learn anything about that. I think if you search for Gabriel Knight, you actually get the Schattenjäger message, yes. Searching for Knight is one of those things that gives you a completely unrelated article and actually gives you points, so I'm not going to do that. Gabriel actually asked Grace to look some stuff up, including Sangreal and vampires, so let's at least do that. Holy Grail. The original and most famous story of the Grail is Wolfenbach's classic Parsifal. In the story, the knight Parsifal of King Arthur's court rides out in search of the legendary Holy Grail. He comes to a mysterious castle and is invited inside. There he meets the Fisher King. The Fisher King suffers from a terrible wound in his thigh. Because of this infirmity, both the castle and the kingdom have fallen into despair and sorrow. Parsifal is invited to stay for a banquet. He witnesses a procession. First, a square with a bleeding lance enters. Next come 2 squires carrying 10 branched candlesticks. Then comes a damsel with the grail. Unfortunately, Parsifal fails to ask the critical questions. What is the grail, and whom does it serve? Because he does not ask, he loses his chance to access the grail and heal the Fisher King and his land. Later in the story, Parsifal rectifies his error and wins the grail by virtue of his pure heart. Many other authors have written of the grail. It is said in various accounts to be a chalice, a stone, and a platter. Some authors claim it is guarded by knights in an underground cavern. Others claim that it was a cup purchased by Joseph of Arimathea for the Last Supper and later used by him at a crucifixion to capture the blood of Jesus. Some believe those who drink from the cup achieve immortality. And, of course, was searched by King Arthur in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Well, not just there, but that's the one I remember. Get on with it. Okay, I will. Let's search for vampires. And there are several entries containing vampire. You don't have to read them because this is the one that gives you a point. Let's see, 18th century vampires treatise translated from German. Actually, the whole, all the books about werewolves and stuff are also in here. I just thought of that because they're translated from German a bit. I think they just basically put an entire website's database of the occult in here as well, which is one of the reasons why this is so vast and far outweighs the subject matter of the game. Let's see, 18th century vampires treatise, translated from German. Vampirism is the act of stealing and drinking another's blood. There are creatures which drain psychic energy instead of blood, and one might argue that these creatures are vampires, but in occult circles such beings are referred to as succubi. For the purposes of this treatise, blood must be involved. Types of vampires. The types of vampires can be distinguished by their purpose in seeking the blood. There are three basic categories: vampires who use the blood for sustenance, vampires who use the blood to steal attributes, and vampires who use the blood to gain power over the host. Vampires who require blood for sustenance. For some creatures, blood is the only viable source of nutrition. Like mosquitoes or leeches, they survive off the blood of the living. All blood-drinking creatures are creatures of darkness. Does that include mosquitoes and leeches? These include demons and monsters. Demons. Many traditional vampire cases in such areas as Hungary, Yugoslavia, and Transylvania can be regarded as demonic possession of the dead. Fortunately, this form of Sibylline entertainment seems to be dying out these days, perhaps because demons do not care for embalming fluid. When such possession occurs, living blood is required to not only nourish the demon, but to keep the corpse from decomposing. Monsters. Monsters are the result of mixing human and demon blood. Such creatures are usually, but not necessarily, evil. Due to the usually paternal demon genetics, living blood is required to sustain life. The appearance of monstrosities is increasingly rare. Vampires who consume blood in order to steal attributes. The earliest magical religions believed that by drinking the blood of a man or animal, one took on that being's traits. Many primitives still drink the blood of the bear and the lion for strength, or the antelope and deer for swiftness. Similarly, some tribes ingest the remains of their dead in order to retain their skills or spirit for the tribe. Western magicians have also been known to consume the blood of humans to steal the host's talent, wisdom, youth, or vitality. The hermetic principles behind this practice bear remarkable correspondence to modern DNA theory. I doubt that. See Blood Cults, Elizabeth of Bathory, and Immortality. Vampires who use the blood to gain power over the host. Blood is closely associated with a person's spirit or essence in many magical traditions. Because of this connection, some rituals involve stealing and using blood in a manner similar to the way that hair and nail clippings are used in voodoo, i.e. to gain control over a subject. Apparently source 70 is the Schattenjäger archives. Let's see some of these links, if there's anything interesting there. Succubi. Succubus and incubus. Supernatural creatures who visit their victims through sexual dreams. Before Freud, disturbing sexual dreams were often thought to be the work of demons, come to tempt a devout Christian to sin. The bearer of such dreams were succubi and incubi, female and male demons respectively, who were sexually insatiable and would rape their victims via sexual dreams while they slept. As fun as this might sound, it could be a terrifying experience for those who believed in such things. It was believed that a visit from a succubus or incubus would drain energy, even life, from its victim. It was a very common form of demonic possession. Let's see, there was also blood cults. From Diary of an English Adept, Rosenklein, I have heard it whispered in the highest magical circles that a cult exists whose secrecy goes even beyond the impenetrable nine. This cult practices black magic, and in particular a peculiar kind of blood magic. Thus have obscure but pernicious rumors surfaced about the existence of a blood cult, a group whose magic revolves around the properties of blood. Some rumors claim that this group is searching for immortality and or heightened magical power through the manipulation of their blood by magic rite, interbreeding, even imbibing the blood of others with desired powers of properties. Nice fellows. Elizabeth of Bathory. Elizabeth of Bathory is a historical figure that has been compared to Jack the Ripper and Dracula. No small feat. Obsessed with remaining beautiful, Elizabeth invented a unique anti-aging formula, bathing in the blood of young virgins. Okay? I think Cleopatra's method of goat's milk probably worked better. She killed and tortured something like 600 girls, according to trial records, before she was finally arrested for her crimes. Her servants were burnt at the stake for their part in the dire deeds, but Elizabeth was walled up alive in Baffery Castle. More nice people. Finally, immortality. Immortality, or living forever, has been an age-old quest of mankind. Ever since man realized that he, like his father before him, would one day die, the quest to escape that sentence has been on, and it has been fraught with desperation and little success. Many religions seek to assure their followers of life beyond death, that is, of the continuing life of the spirit, either through a destiny in heaven or hell, or through reincarnation back onto the earthly plane. The goal of many occult traditions has been to look for immortality in the here and now, not trusting in the promises of the spirit world. Alchemists sought to create the Philosopher's Stone in order to achieve immortality. Others sought the Fountain of Youth or the Tree of Life from the Garden of Eden. In the case of the latter two, it was said that a drink, or single fruit, would produce immortality. In the story of the Grail, the knight who protected the Grail was granted immortality as long as he remained in its presence. There are legends regarding immortals, men and women who have achieved immortality, and who continue to walk the earth long after their biological time is past. See Wandering Jew. To get off topic for a little while, if you ask me, immortality would be horrible. Life is precious because it is limited. The only reason you have any reason to do anything with your life is because you know that you may otherwise not get the chance. If it lasts forever, why would you ever want to actually accomplish anything? It's one of the reasons why I cannot bring myself to believe in heaven. Because to me, eternal life sounds like hell, regardless of where you live it out. Not that I wouldn't want longer life, 1,000 years might be nice, like the Asari in Mass Effect. But what would you do with eternal life? Because 1,000 years, okay, but then the next 10,000, and then the next 100,000, and then the next million years, and then you still have eternity left. It would be horrible. Okay, let's see, alchemists. Yeah, I'm not gonna go too much further with this. I think I'll read this one, and then it really becomes way too off topic, and some of these things will come back later anyway. Alchemy is an ancient art, especially practiced in the Middle Ages, primarily to discover a substance that would transmute common or base metals into gold or silver, and to find a means of definitely prolonging human life. Even though its original purposes and techniques may have been doubtful and visionary, alchemy was the predecessor to modern chemistry. The ancient practice dates back to Egypt. It flourished in Alexandria at the same time the school of alchemy was developing in China. The early Greek philosophers wrote the first chemical theories. The theory advanced by Empedocles in the 5th century BC, that all things are composed of air, earth, fire, and water, greatly influenced alchemy. Roman emperors seem to have mixed feelings about the practice. Caligula is alleged to have ordered experiments performed attempting to produce gold from orpiment, a sulfide of arsenic, while Diocletian is said to have ordered all Egyptian works concerning silver and gold to be burned and all such experiments stopped. The fundamental basis on which alchemy rests is Aristotle's doctrine that all things tend to reach perfection. This led to the theory that gold, found deep within the earth, had naturally been produced from less perfect metals. The alchemist's hope was then to discover the secret of this natural process and duplicate it. The original attempts for achieving such a feat were both empirical and practical, but toward the 4th century astrological and magical influences were becoming more dominant. Probably because the empirical and practical things were kind of running out, considering it has no basis in reality. But in the 13th century, the practice of alchemy took on almost a religious fervor. The skilled alchemist not only went through a rigorous apprenticeship, but also a solemn ceremony upon the completion of his training. This is seen by the influences of Neoplatonic magic, astrology, mysticism, medicine, the esoteric doctrines of the Near East, Pythagoreanism, okay, that's kind of hard to say, I mean, Pythagoras is easy, but to make it into an ism. And Orphism, which were eventually embodied in alchemy. By their strict practices and their searches for the philosopher's stone, the true alchemist endeavored to refresh and restore the earth. Because of its spiritual aspect, alchemy is still valued by many today. I guess so. One famous alchemist that you may not be aware of was Newton, which he's not really remembered for because, well, it has no practical application and is basically not true, unlike his theory of gravity and stuff like that. The sources here are apparently from a website called www.themystica.com. Lots of articles from there. I do not know if this website is still online. I should really check that. And the other one... no, that's the same. Okay, whatever. I guess the numbers refer to that list. There's other things here, but I think I'll leave it this far. There was another link to the Philosopher's Stone. I will read that. Originally, the Philosopher's Stone was believed to be the chemical that changed base metals into silver or gold. Often it was termed the power of projection. It was first mentioned by Zosimus the Theban, circa 250 to 300, in the 3rd century. Yes, that is the 3rd century. Throughout the generations, the Philosopher's Stone has taken on an immense range of powers. Not only has it been called the secret of life and health, but also possessing spiritual significance. The notion of its spiritual qualities expanded until in the 13th century a program evolved that led the alchemist through a strict devotional ritual and purification. After completing this ceremony, he was thought worthy to perform his activities. Eventually, the Philosopher's Stone was thought to signify the force behind the evolution of life and the universal binding power which unites minds and souls in a human oneness. Finally, it represented the purity and sanctity of the highest realm of pure thought and altruistic existence. Okay. And I do appreciate that unlike a certain Harry Potter book, despite the fact that this is American, they didn't feel the need to change Philosopher's Stone to Sorcerer's Stone. I don't really know why the American publishers for Harry Potter insisted on that. I mean, if people really don't know what the Philosopher's Stone is, they can look it up. Any more links in here? The Wandering Jew. The legend of the Wandering Jew has several forms. The most basic is that during the walk to Golgotha, Jesus stumbled under the weight of the cross and fell to his knees. A mean-spirited Jewish shopkeeper who was in the crowd berated him, saying, "Go on, go on!" Is that one of the things shown on the displays in the church? I don't know. Jesus turned to the man and said, "I will go on, and so will you, until I return." Thus the man was condemned to keep moving perpetually, living on through the centuries, awaiting the second coming. This is only one version of the story, but all variants share certain features, namely that a man from the time of Christ became immortal through some connection to the crucifixion and is doomed to wander eternally. See, here they do portray eternal life as a curse, more in line with my own thinking. The legend was particularly popular in the 18th century with occultists. Certain court provocateurs, such as the Comte de Saint-Germain, hinted that they might actually be the Wandering Jew. Sightings of the character in fiction were commonplace. But that's fiction, so that doesn't really help. Okay, back to vampires, which also has an excerpt from Dracula by Bram Stoker. Let's see. She seemed like a nightmare of Lucy as she lay there, the pointed teeth, the blood-stained, voluptuous mouth, which made one shudder to see the whole carnal and unspirited appearance, seeming like a devilish mockery of Lucy's sweet purity. Van Helsing, with his usual methodicalness, began taking the various contents from his bag and placing them ready for use. First, he took out a soldering iron and some plumbing solder, and then a small oil lamp, which he gave out. When lit in a corner of the tomb, gas which burnt at a fierce heat with a blue flame. Then his operating knives, which he placed to hand, and last, a round wooden stake, some 2.5 or 3 inches thick and about 3 feet long. One end of it was hardened by charring in the fire, and was sharpened to a fine point. With this stake came a heavy hammer, such as in households is used in the coal cellar for breaking the lumps. To me, a doctor's preparations for work of any kind are stimulating and bracing, but the effect of these things on both Arthur and Quincy was to cause them a sort of consternation. They both, however, kept their courage, and remained silent and quiet. When all was ready, Van Helsing said, "Before we do anything, let me tell you this. It is out of the lore and experience of the ancients, and of all those who have studied the powers of the undead. When they have become such, there comes with the change the curse of immortality. They cannot die, but must go on age after age, adding new victims and multiplying the evils of the world. For all that die from the preying of the undead become themselves undead, and prey on their kind. And so the circle goes on, ever widening, like as the ripples from a stone thrown in the water. Friend Arthur, if you had met that kiss which you know of, before poor Lucy died, or again last night when you opened your arms to her, you would in time, when you had died, have become Nosferatu, as they call it in Eastern Europe, and would for all time make more of those undeads that so have filled us with horror. The career of this so unhappy dear lady is but just begun. Those children whose blood she sucked are not as yet so much the worse, but if she lives on, undead, more and more they lose their blood, and by her power over them they come to her, and so she draw their blood with that so wicked mouth. But if she die in truth, then all cease. The tiny wounds of the throats disappear, and they go back to their play, unknowing ever of what has been. But the most blessed of all, when this now undead be made to rest, as true dead, then the soul of the poor lady whom we love shall again be free. Instead of working wickedness by night, and growing more debased in the assimilating of it by day, she shall take her place with the other angels. So that, my friend, it will be a blessed hand for her that shall strike the blow that sets her free. To this I am willing, but is there none amongst us who has a better right? Will it not be joy to think of hereafter in the silence of the night, when sleep is not, it was my hand that sent her to the stars. It was the hand of him that loved her best, the hand of all she would have herself have chosen. Had it been to her to choose. Tell me if there be such a one amongst us." We all looked at Arthur. He saw too what we all did, the infinite kindness which suggested that his should be the hand which would restore Lucy to us as a holy, and not as an unholy, memory. He stepped forward and said bravely, though his hand trembled and his face was as pale as snow, "My true friend, from the bottom of my broken heart I thank you. Tell me what I am to do, and I shall not falter." Van Helsing laid a hand on his shoulder and said, "Brave lad, a moment's courage, and it is done. This stake must be driven through her. It will be a fearful ordeal, be not deceived in that, but it will be only a short time, and you will then rejoice more than your pain was great. From this grim tomb you will emerge as though you tread on air, but you must not falter when once you have begun. Only think that we, your true friends, are around you, and that we pray for you all the time." "Go on," Arthur said hoarsely. "Tell me what I am to do." "Take this stake in your left hand, ready to place to the point over the heart, and the hammer in your right. Then, when we begin our prayer for the dead, I shall read him. I have here the book, and the other shall follow. Strike in God's name, so that all may be well with the dead that we love, and that the undead pass away." Arthur took the stake and the hammer, and when once his mind was set on action and his hands never trembled or even quivered. Van Helsing opened his missal and began to read, and Quincy and I followed as well as we could. Arthur placed the point over the heart, and as I looked I could see its dint in the white flesh. Then he struck with all his might. The thing in the coffin writhed, and a hideous, blood-curdling screech came from the opened red lips. The body shook and quivered and twisted in its wild contortions. The sharp white teeth clamped together till the lips were cut, and the mouth was smeared with a crimson foam. But Arthur never faltered. He looked like a figure of 4 as his untrembling arm rose and fell, driving deeper and deeper the mercy-bearing stick, whilst the blood from the pierced heart welled and spurted up around it. His face was set, and high duty seemed to shine through it. The sight of it gave us courage, so that our voices seemed to ring through the little vault. And then the writhing and quivering of the body became less, and the teeth seemed to champ, and the face to quiver. Finally, it lay still. The terrible task was over. Unfortunately for the people in Bram Stoker's novel, it's not quite as easy to kill vampires there as it is in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Okay, well, that took us on quite a journey. There's one more thing I wish to look up, which will not take as much time, hopefully, which is Prince James, which gives us the House of Stuart. At least they spell it right here, unlike the business card. The House of Stuart was the royal house of Scotland from the 14th century, beginning with Robert the Bruce in 1314, who won independence from Britain. Another famous descendant of the family was Mary, Queen of Scots, 1542 to 1587. In 1603, James VI succeeded Elizabeth I of England, who died childless. James VI ruled both Scotland and England, uniting the countries, but the age-old rivalry between Scotland and England made this succession difficult for the English to bear. His son, Charles I, was murdered by Cromwell. In 1660, Charles II was named King of England and Scotland, uniting the countries under the Stuart dynasty once again. But it was not to last. The Stuarts were ousted and replaced by the current dynasty, the Hanovers. Today, the House of Stuart is active in its exile and are called the Counts of Albany or Princes of Albany. Okay, just a little bit of background on Prince James there, and I think that is enough for one video. We'll check what else Sydney has to offer us at this time, in the next video.